Prime Minister Shri Narendra Modi's dream of a digital India, where quality education reaches the most inaccessible corners, driven by digital learning, is beginning to see the light of the day through the tenets of the National Education Policy 2020. The policy calls for optimizing existing digital platforms and ongoing ICT-based educational initiatives to meet the current and future challenges in providing quality education for all. Creating a dedicated unit for building of world-class digital infrastructure, educational digital content, and capacity are the planned initiatives needed to integrate technology seamlessly into curriculum. Good evening, everyone. I am Meenu Chopra. Welcome you to the 4th episode of Decoding NEP 2020, brought to you by EduDev's School of Inspired Teaching and Learning in association with Amrita Vishwa Vidyapeetham University. Through today's session on blended learning and digitized classroom, we wish to understand and highlight the emerging importance of leveraging technology for teaching, learning, and enhancing educational access. We are honored to welcome our panelists for the discussion today. Our first panelist, Dr. P. Shankar, who is presently principal at Amrita School of Engineering, Chennai campus of Amrita Vishwa Vidyapeetham, is a prolific researcher cum teacher. He has served as Senior Scientific Officer at the Indira Gandhi Center for Atomic Research for 19 years before shifting to a full-time position in educational institutions since 2008. His passion for education and to motivate students has been the driving force for him to take up full-time responsibility as academic administrator. His vision is to implement new strategies and directions in higher education to strengthen the intellectual capacity of our nation. We welcome you, Dr. Shankar. Our second panelist for the webinar is Ms. Dia Baijal, founder principal at Birla Open Minds International School. She is a passionate educationist and an administrator with experience spanning 2 decades. She has worked at premier institutes like La Martina College, Study Hall School, and City International School, Lucknow, Uttar Pradesh. During her stint in the UK, she had the opportunity to learn more about school infrastructure and management. She has worked with rural and urban schools in and around Lucknow, bringing a positive change in the community through education. She has been a proponent of thematic and integrated approach to learning using best practices through varied mediums. We are extremely delighted to have you amidst us. Our next panelist is Ms. Kirti Tripathi, Head Curriculum Development and Technology Integration, Amity Schools, a Microsoft Innovative Educator, Microsoft Master Trainer, and Nat Geo Certified Educator. Ms. Tripathi is an education evangelist with more than 27 years of experience in the field. Ms. Kirti is passionate about mentoring, teaching, and bringing change in the education segment. Her area of expertise is curriculum design and development, which also involves training educators to equip and assist them in creating innovative, challenging, and enriching classroom environment. She strongly advocates the pervasive role of technology in everyday teaching learning practices and has spearheaded the remote learning project for all branches of Amity International Schools. We are privileged to have you amidst us. The moderator for today's session is Mrs. Devyani Kapoor. Mrs. Kapoor is an educator, an author, and a thought leader. She is the founder and CEO of EduDevs, the School of Inspired Teaching and Learning. An ex-principal, she comes with over 30 years of experience with her in education sector and has worked with key brands in the educational industry. She is credited with introduction of a number of innovative pedagogical techniques for effective classroom management, quality circle time, lesson planning, experiential learning, and student empowerment techniques. No one can remain unaffected by her effusive charm. Mrs. Kapoor believes in preparing her students for the challenges of a changing world and trusts that in the internet age, teachers must teach tomorrow's skills today. Welcome, Mrs. Kapoor. And I now request you to take over the stage.
Thank you so much, Neenu, for a very, very wonderful and illustrious profile read by you. Thank you so much. I warmly welcome all our panelists who are distinguished in their own sphere of influence and carry with them immense experience. You see, every student of the 21st century has ample access on the internet, and the education system stands to benefit by helping students channel the infinite potential of information into a very, very constructive context like academics. The present day system of education must synthesize the power of information era to facilitate higher self-learning capacity in each and every student. The information is out there, and the education system should be conducive enough to allow students to explore and figure out without being, on the one hand, spoon-fed knowledge by teachers, and on the other, the teachers playing a role where they are able to assist students to discern knowledge. The 21st century students live in an integrated world that requires them to be culturally and socially very competent. The hybrid learning approach that we are going to talk about today, that is the blended learning, is an essential reimagination of the conventional education model by providing students with an opportunity to combine the uses of both online and face-to-face learning techniques. Now, very clearly, before we enter and delve into the blended learning and digitized classroom, I would want to draw your attention to the debate which opened with the inauguration of the 21st century, which sparked off a lot of controversy. On the one hand, we had professional educators completely who supported blended and virtual classrooms. They believed it heralded the beginning of a new, exciting direction in teaching and learning because it utilizes the latest technique of collaboration, critical thinking, and communication. On the other hand, we have a group of professionals who lament the personal disconnected elements that somewhere get lost when in a virtual and online classroom. The debate is endless, but all said and done, research shows that blended learning can improve academic achievement by offering students a variety of ways to interact with academic material. They somewhere have a affinity and a kind of recognition with the kind of processes they are already used to dealing. Things like computer games, instant messaging, things like out of school projects. Most important with blended learning is the student has a great control of the pace with which he can learn. He is in command of his own pace if structured properly. We now begin the session with an ice-breaking question, which will be posed to all the three panelists in order of the first, it goes to Ms. Kirti Tripathi, then Dr. P. Shankar, followed by Ms. Dia Bejal. So the National Education Policy 2020 outlines the vision of India's new education system. And one of the most important ingredients is blended learning. Parallelly, we see that pandemic expedited the process, something which we will all agree that we were putting under the carpet. We suddenly moved on a very, very fast track. Overnight, educators, students, managements, they all became leaders and took lead in this transition. Now, over to you, Ms. Kirti Tripathi. What is your take on digitized classrooms in the light of national education policy per se, the Indian context, and creating it as a global learning platform? Yes, ma'am.
Thank you, Ms. Devyani, and I just acknowledge all of my panelists, and they all of them are highly experienced. So since I have been given opportunity to start, definitely digitizing any classroom will certainly increase the access of quality content to a larger population. But on the contrary, if you look into the ethos of education, especially school education, that is meant for social good. So NEP somewhere, of course, it has offered very, very intellectual path to derive the education process in our in India, but it lacks, the state's responsibility, per se, since it is a policy document. There has to be some kind of a, responsibility of the state should be given, or existing, people who are in place who are looking after education department. So that is slightly lacking in the document, meaning there is no mention of that there is going to be some kind of regulatory bodies who are going to provide, equitable digitized platform for everyone. So if we are looking for digital or blended learning per se as a, new model for developing our education segment, this is one thing which is I would like to bring everyone's attention over here, that this is going to be possible only if the state owns the responsibility of providing equitable and low-cost tech infrastructure. So some kind of accountability is required over there. Definitely, as I said, the schools where we are belonging to, they are, good schools, urban schools. They don't see that kind of a problem where there is no, we have not experienced that kind of a digital divide. But when you see and read number of cases, you come across, there is a lot of cases of digital divide which is being brought to the notice in this kind of, when you bring in digitization into your classroom segment. So this is one thing which I really want to voice for, that we need to look into this aspect as well. Secondly, as I said, that NEP, National Education Policy, is providing an intellectual roadmap. So there are a lot of insights given in terms of interdisciplinary education, progressive pedagogies. So when I look into progressive pedagogies, most of them can be very well, imbibed into the classroom situation with good technology integration. So because most of them are working on the constructivist approach, and in that approach, a teacher needs to act like a facilitator, and she has to create some kind of an environment for the students so that they come up with their own learning outcomes. So, yeah, so I think I should stop and allow a list also to speak. Yeah.
very good, two good points that it is the state's ownership to provide low cost digitization of the technology
Yeah.
integrated classroom. That is something which has hit. Yes, over to Dr. P. Shankar. What is your take on the same, sir?
Thank you, Mrs. Devian. We all accept that the entire education sector is witnessing paradigm shifts in terms of the learning patterns. There's a greater focus on learner-centric pedagogies from the earlier teaching-centric design that we have been following for decades. Now, when we are talking about learner-centric, outcome-based educations, it is very evident that the next generation is more adept to accepting audiovisual based inputs. That's a change in the learning psychology, if you have noticed in the last decade or more. In our days, we used to be comfortable having 2 or 3 books around us and reading from the books. Today's generation and probably the next generation, they're more comfortable listening to audiovisual, animation, simulation, game-based learning. They want learning to be more fun and at the same time more interactive. And that's where we have to adapt to a very digital mode of teaching. If the end purpose is what we teach is important, but what is more important is what the students learn. And what is even more important than that is how they are able to translate that knowledge and wisdom into useful outcomes for the community. And therefore, the next generation is more keen to take inputs in the digital format, which brings a lot of diversity, more fun-based games. There are a lot of tools available, fun-based learning, simulations. We are using an app where even in the classroom, it's not that we have to ask questions one by one, but the entire class can participate. You know whether the entire class at the same time using these apps, whether they are on the same page. It gives a lot of advantage to know if the entire class is going along with the teacher on the same page and to evaluate if there are some slow learners. But having said that, of course, we all know that the digital learning format has its own limitations in a sense that we have to accept. Yes, it definitely provides equity and access across the nation. It provides the students, even in the deepest pockets of our rural villages, access to some of the best lectures by some of the best teachers in the country. But many of the students need that kind of motivation, that kind of guidance from the students or from the teachers. And that's where I think that a blended learning, it's because education is not just about strengthening the intellect and making them more creative, but also infusing into them that component of social behavior, about the ethics and the very important attributes of management skills and communication. And for all this, I feel an optimum blend, a blended learning approach will be the key. Thank you. Madam, I guess you are muted, Mrs. Devyani.
Yeah, thank you so much, sir. Very well, you have blessed us with all the latest developments that have been taking place. But I just have a small, before I move on to Ms. Diya Vaidya, just one little thing that has been, coming to my mind is there already exists the rural-urban divide and also an urban-urban divide. Here we sit in a place Delhi NCR or probably in Bangalore or Cochin, we can talk about digitally integrated. But one bite on this, that how far this dream seems to be, fulfilled when we talk about the digitization being able to be accessed. Because I know I was holding certain sessions in Srinagar, and there I felt that it was very difficult. The connectivity was a major problem. They were not able to have classes regularly. So, what is it here? We are talking about the smart apps, the coding, the artificial intelligence, so many other things. So, this equity and accessibility, how will that happen? Maybe Sir or Dia can take it up from here actually.
Yes, so
Yes, Dia.
I really wanted to again go with the very basis of the NEP 2020, which is based on the, built on the pillars of access, equity, quality, affordability, and accountability. And along with this, it talks of education that is more holistic, flexible, and it has to be with a multiple discipline. So putting all those things and knowing the scenario in India where there is a big divide, as we were talking about the urban and the rural, we have to, work in collaboration. There has to be networking. It has to be the government. It has to be, the state government with the central government and all the education boards sitting together and coming on a common platform where we get the only way forward is a digital classroom. And where we have to, make this balance is where we all, brainstorm and come together and find effective solutions. So when we talk of, urban schools, and we are privileged to be in some of the schools where, we already have digital classes and blended learning is already happening. And I think the lockdown really was a catalyst in going ahead with blended learning, and we even had exams online, and we're all very familiar with that now. And that's all
Right.
because of the pandemic, it just acted as a catalyst. But while I have been working with some of the rural schools, one major aspect which has really helped is a digital classroom. And here, obviously, with Wi-Fi and having like live streaming as we are right now, it becomes more effective. However, but if we have videos and we even have like a television and or a computer in any remote area of the country, also we can bring quality education there, because we can't take a good teacher. We can't take expensive, teaching aids everywhere, but we can take, a digital classroom and make it more effective, because they're sitting in a remote area also. A child can, see a 3D version of the earth, can, look into scientific experiments, can know so much more, can have the best of teachers explaining it to them. Because see, every teacher cannot be good at all the subjects. And this becomes a major, problem in rural areas, in remote villages, where we don't have quality teachers. We don't have people who can, bring about that kind of a change where the learning teaching process can be so effective. So this is the medium, and we all need to, have a collaboration, it's networking, and having more sessions like this where we can bridge that gap. And I think that is the way forward.
Thank you so much, Dia, for your insight. And yes, I do agree that a lot was done during pandemic and the digital classrooms reached there. But let us delve into the deeper aspects of blended learning and digitized classroom, which may go beyond just the access of internet. It may just go to technology integration in terms of their critical thinking and problem solving and coming up with their own devices. Starting with the second segment, I move to Ms. Priti Tripathi. And the question addressed to you, Ms. Tripathi, is that, I think the biggest challenge to conducting online classes during pandemic was the lack of preparedness of the organizations in rural and tier 2 and tier 3 areas as well. Organizational readiness is a very, very important aspect when we talk about blended learning or digitized classrooms. It may have two aspects. One is preparing faculty to effectively design and administer, the blended instructions. And second is the cost that an organization or an institution is able to incur to bring that kind of a technology integration. So what do you have to say on this? Especially, I would want Kirti, you to throw light on the organizational aspects of organizational readiness to implement technology.
Definitely, Devyani ma'am, it is very, very important that organization needs to be ready, and they should have the resources in place to, roll out this kind of, at such a, short period of time, you were expected to roll out online classes among so many children across the border. So this was definitely a challenge. So the first challenge was to train the teacher at least to the basic level so that they can operate the app through which they can deliver their lesson. So we have gone into phases. We have, of course, initially our first preparedness was to make the teachers at least aware of the app through which they are going to be delivering their online lessons. So initially, of course, the teachers were not very conversant with the idea of the kind of a lesson planning you require for online classes, because there is a slightly differentiation when you talk in terms of a face-to-face classroom situation or in terms of online classes. So definitely initially they started to emulate their physical classrooms only in the online session, but soon they realized that that model is not going to work. So we identified, because when you are working in an online mode, I think the first thing which is very important is student engagement, because student is sitting alone. You have to create some kind of a motivation to the child to attend that session with his 100% attention. So that is something which is very, very important. So to cater to student attention, what we have done was we tried to train the teacher to create their lessons in such a way they are very interactive in their modalities. So we've used number of apps where they are well driven by feedbacking mechanisms, like things like Peer Deck. We were using in our classroom, so where whatever the teacher is describing, that is emulated to all students' screen. So student responses are coming back to the teacher, so she could give immediately the feedback, and that increase the engagement of the students. So we tried to figure out, it has been a full year of a learning basically for all of us. So we experimented with various models, and we also distributed our instructions in such a way that maybe certain instructions which can be done, which need not require face-to-face instruction, they can be given to the students in terms of their own. They can be self-paced instructions. There could be certain instructions which require face-to-face intervention of the teacher, because there is the explanation involved, and child has to create his or her own perspective, which teacher might have to create, understand, and maybe just give different references to maybe understand whatever the child is learning, whether he or she is giving or representing his or her learning in a right perspective or not. So division of the instruction in terms of some which can go in form of a self-paced, some where I require face-to-face intervention. So basically blended learning is actually based on this process where you divide your instructions. Some can go into in the student pace, so you have to have some place. So LMS could be one of the best solution for that. But most of these apps which schools are using, like Google Classrooms or Microsoft Teams, they are also offering facility for providing instructions which can run in a self-paced manner by the child. then there could be certain live classes. So this way we've reduced the number of live classes and we could cover the entire syllabi. So that was the kind of insight we have used. It was throughout the year, we've been learning, evolving new models and trying to modify our system to get best out of the children. Thank you so
Great.
much.
Thank you so much. I think, Kirti, you just I was completely hearing you, glued to what you were saying, and you formatted the whole thing, that how the journey had started. And I'm sure it would have been extremely difficult, considering that the teachers at their various age stages and age groups, and their willingness and their flexibility to adopt and adapt to the newer paradigms which the education system was throwing at them. But hats off to the educators. I think each and every, I know people at 60, 58, 55, they all were kind of trying to upgrade themselves. Moving on to Dr. Shankar, and this is something very related to what I asked Kirti.
Yes.
Kirti laid down a very well chalked out path and trajectory, and the structure of how the transition was happening from a face-to-face to a digital platform. But it wouldn't have been so simple, because something very important was also being transformed, which was the psyche, and which was the willingness of the teacher and the students, and the aspect of discipline. So these were a lot of undercurrents that were, actually things like students scribbling, different students entering different classes. Initially, first few months, I think everybody had a very tough time firefighting this kind of a problem.
Yeah, I'll just come in over here. Over here, the organizational help, the way they perceive the problem, I think that pitches in over here. So if the organization is willing to provide certain tech support, and so we've got ample tech support from our organization, and we've devised a complete system which never had the problems which you were stating. So it was more secure and more conducive environment for the students to learn.
Oh, that's really nice, because across you would be reading, and I spoke to so many principals and heads and coordinators, and this was some problem they were facing. And anyways, the counselors and of the school were taking charge of this. Yes, sir. Over to you. Now, the practical application of what Kirti has said is a bit more complicated than we may think. At the core of blended learning is about rethinking how a classroom is structured, how time is used, and how resources are allocated, and how the transaction is taking place. Because there is always this virtual screen which is there, which is defeating the face-to-face, the human interaction which the teacher and the student has. So I want your inputs on, do you think the teachers were prepared or are prepared for a multi-dimensional role that national education policy envisages, in terms of they being a facilitator, letting the student explore knowledge himself? Thirdly, also then helping them discern that kind of knowledge. So could you just throw some light on the preparedness of the educators on this, the role of the educator? Yes, sir.
Yes. It's inevitable that the teachers, particularly as we go along, they have to adapt to technology, be it pure classroom teaching or a blended teaching or a digital teaching. As I told, there's changing learning psychologies, and therefore we have to adapt as teachers to inculcate this technology based teaching practices, which can include simulations, game-based learnings, activities, and that's how you keep the interest in them. A very monotonous lecture it's very difficult to keep the focus and concentration of students for hours and hours together from morning to evening. And research definitely shows that beyond 20 minutes, they tend to stray off a little bit. So I fully agree with what Ms. Kirti had mentioned, that we have to have a very well planned a course delivery plan to involve a lot of activity based and keep it very interesting, fun based learning for the students. A major problem that our faculty have actually come across in the online classes is the kind of disconnect with the students. We don't have that face to face because normally in the class, the emotions of the students, the nonverbal communication goes in a very big way to modulate and reach out to the students. And so that was a very big disadvantage to the teachers. The other disadvantage was we really are not sure if the person on the other side is actually listening to you, or he has just logged in and disappeared from that side. There are issues, we should agree, though the majority of them have been very cooperative, going well, but we did have a few of these kind of issues. The best way to tackle all this is to introduce a very fun-based learning, to introduce in between flipped classrooms we had several sessions with the faculty to actually prepare them to accept that the online learning psychology is totally different from a classroom learning psychology. The teachers will have to appreciate that, so that needs a lot of orientation. And having said that, so we requested them to bring in a lot of team-based activities where they can talk to each other in over mobile and then come out with some small outcomes during the class, and also ask questions in specific to each student by name. And therefore, the students are always prepared that it could be their chance in random. And I'm sure every class will design their own methodologies. But I fully agree that bringing in some of very fun-based learning, a lot of simulations is what the students really look for in the classroom, and not the very monotonous repeat of very fundamental concepts which they would be able to read themselves. So it's more the higher order thinking and lateral thinking concepts that the students are really looking for. So if you're able to engage students at that level, I find their level of participation better. So this is the general feedback that we have received, that whenever the teachers are actually talking about fundamental concepts somewhere, the focus is not that very good, but when they're talking about higher order thinking and analytical problem solving skills discussion in the class, the kind of student participation is definitely better. That's our experience during the last 1 year.
Thank you, sir. Very well said. And I think it's time for the educators to actually evaluate their role in the classrooms and determine if their curriculum is designed, as you said, to help students think not just focused on one, but think laterally and become successful in his immediate environment. And also very important is, as I said in the beginning, that 21st century is all about information and knowledge, which is at the press of a button. So teachers' role definitely became very, very important in helping them sift the right kind of knowledge. Thank you, sir. Moving on to Ms. Dia Bejul. Ma'am, the teaching learning process has to be a balance between instruction-based and interaction-based engagement. Students can be encouraged to go through online learning material, because when we talk about blended, there is a two-way kind of interaction that's happening. So students can be encouraged to go through online learning material before they can come to the class. That's a very beautiful way, sending them. what do you think? What is your take on a flipped classroom approach? How important flipped classroom becomes in active blended learning scenario? And do you think it is like probably sending the material and then putting too much burden on the student to kind of, yeah, yes, yes, Ms. Bajaj.
Yes, I feel flipped learning is
May we please,
yes. So
may we please mute ourselves? I request all the viewers to please mute yourself. And thank you. Yes.
So the flipped classroom is very important, and as you said, that you give them, the content earlier. They go through it. They go through what they have to, learn, and they already have an idea when they come to the class. So when they come to the class, a lot of time is saved. They have gone through a video, or the content is very well made. It is the quality that matters. So it's full of audio visuals. Everything is in a compact way put into that method, and the child has already gone through it. So when the child comes to the class, the child is already aware of what is going to happen, and there is more time with the teacher, because this is where critical thinking happens, problem solving happens, and this is the time when they get that 1:1, the teacher student time. So there is more of collaborative thinking. There is more of sharing of ideas. So supposedly if they've gone through the video, the already, which has to be taught in class, and they've come back and they have a whole lot of questions, and in this way it becomes more interactive, it becomes more interesting, and there is a lot of communication, which is one of the most important aspects where we are looking at. And this way there is a lot of time also which is saved, and it's more cost effective, because when we need a lot of expensive teaching aids which we need in the classroom, which might not be possible for all schools. So this is a very, very effective way of conducting a class, and it has loads of benefits, as I just told you, whether it is to be saving time, it is about more of critical thinking, it is about more of having time when you can come up with your questions. There is more time where the teacher can exactly question each and every child and find out, and the child is also learning at its own pace. If the child didn't understand, the child can go back and go through it, and again come up with understand that exact part. And if a child has not been well, again there is that part already there on Google Classroom or whichever app you all are using. The child can go back and get into it and see it, and so the child doesn't really miss anything. So that again becomes very effective. So overall, it is a very, very effective means of our new age of blended learning, and it makes the teaching learning process more enriched. It becomes more interesting, and definitely, I think that's where once the child, because today, I mean, you see a small child also, they are so they are so savvy. A small baby of 1 year or 2 year old is on an iPad. So you they are really glued to it. So this becomes a very effective means. And obviously it is, I think, being put into all our curriculum, and it is a very, very effective means.
Thank you so much, Dia, for the insightful information. Very quickly, I would want to, before coming to Kirti, for the second question, I would just want to take it from here, Kirti, that, flipped classroom is a very beautiful concept, but it can completely go haywire if it is taken for granted in terms of that, the content is sent, But when the child comes back, the kind of designing, the kind of role that a facilitator plays, that is extremely, extremely important. So, Kirti, can you first answer this very quickly? We are running short of time, and then I'll move on to the next question, because this is something which you
Okay.
have worked, I know, very in detail. Yes.
So basically, as Ms. Tia said, that flipped model works very well with the blended classroom. So what you can flip, that is very important. It's not that every instruction can be flipped. So you need to identify that, okay, this set of instruction can be managed by the child in a self-spaced manner. So
Yes.
that particular thing can be flipped, and you can create a video content for that and maybe put it on the LMS, or it could be even a Google Classroom per se, whatever you're using, or maybe Microsoft Teams, so that the child is browsing through that content as his or her pace. You can also incorporate to make it more effective, that child is actually doing that content to understand. I mean, as a teacher, I should understand that child has gone through. So you can integrate some, formative assessments over there, maybe some quizzes which are formative in nature, where the child is answering questions based on the video content which was supported, and he or she is able to evaluate whether he is able to achieve that learning outcome or not. So when they come to the classroom situation, based on that particular assessment and based on the entire process which child has gone through, within the classroom situation, teacher can now invest more time in terms of discussion on the concept, so that every child can bring in his or her perspective, and she can really understand whether the children have understood. She can be more, devising certain problems where problem solving or critical thinking skills are in use. So the teacher role, basically, it is flipping the regular normal classroom situation, where normally teacher delivers a content, and the questions, problem solving are left to the children, that, okay, go home and do this as a homework. So flipped
Right.
classroom model works just reversal of the role. So you're just reversing the role. Content delivery is to be done at the self-paced manner. And within the classroom, it is more of a discussion on problems, maybe in terms of a discussion or solving those problems, depending on the subject area where you are working in.
Yeah.
So
Thank you
that's
so
how.
much. Thank you so much, Kriti. That means monitoring becomes very, very important role of the educator. You give the content, but at the same time, designing of your assessment and monitoring that assessment, it becomes very critical. Now, Kirti, and as we know, an apple is not equal to an orange, and there has been a lot of buzz around differential teaching and learning, which schools are adopting. So, assessment should not be a single window process. The student should get multiple windows of assessment, which when
True.
it was a traditional classroom, this started taking place with the CCE or other means of internal assessment. How do you propose to plan an assessment? If you could just throw some light, because I'm sure there are so many educators who are listening to and watching this webinar today, that how do you propose to plan the assessment? What will be the parameters of an online assessment, which is created differentially to cater to the differing needs of each child in the same standard? Yeah.
Okay, if you look into the current NEP guidelines, they are moving towards competency-based assessment. That is, there are learning outcomes predefined, and the teacher needs to judge the child's learning across that competency in terms of learning outcome. So, in this form of assessment, it is very important. I mean, the traditional pen and paper-based assessments are not going to suffice for this kind of a model which we are aiming to. So over here, what we need to look into is more feedback oriented assessment, so that the child is able to gauge himself where he or she stands against that learning outcome. That's pretty important. So, there is a lot of emphasis given on the feedback mechanism. So the feedback has to be very, very concrete in nature. So based on the learning outcomes which the teacher has devised, she can prepare certain set of questions or maybe some writing assignment. It is going to vary based on the subject area which you are going to look into. It could be a problem solving. And while she's administering those, tests, so-called tests, because we understand them, any assessment, we understand them as a test. So instead of marking them, numerically, it should be more in terms of a feedback. Like if I'm a child, I'm a student, I have written an answer. So I should be told very categorically where I am lacking from the from the teacher's expectation. So very, very, vivid feedbacks are very important in this mechanism. Then only child will be able to gauge whether he has attained that learning outcome to the mastery level or not. So that's one thing. Secondly, we can't think of, we cannot really rely too much on these summative assessments, which are term end kind of assessment. Rather, there should be, at any point of time, there should be a mechanism through which the child is able to demonstrate visually his or her learning. There could be a lot of ways for that. Let's say we are discussing French Revolution in the classroom situation. So we can ask children to understand or read down certain paragraphs from the text, or you can offer some website for them to go through, or let them see some video, and there could be some open-ended questions offered to them, and you can leave it to the child to choose a medium of expression. It could be audio, video, whatever they like to express to showcase their learning, and that could be collated, and teacher should be evaluated using rubrics. So that is, I think, is more, it will give way to more differentiated instructions and differentiated measuring of the learning outcome. Thank you.
Thank you. I think the bottom line is, which you have said, and I was exactly thinking that the assessment now should be encouraged in terms of feedback, rubrics, where the child knows what is his beginning, meeting, and exceeding. The learning outcomes should be very, very carefully designed. Less reliance on numbers as assessment, I believe that is, and more as on credits and grading, because you can't, for example, you can't give a child a 0 because the effort the child has made learning or reading or preparing for an assessment. So those things and those mindsets will have to be changed, that just because he's done a question wrong means that you just cross it and label the child's assessment with a 0. So yes, very well said. And I think all our teachers would take this advice seriously and try and implement them in their classrooms. My next question is to Dr. Shankar. And we see that the use of e-learning materials increases students' ability to set appropriate learning goals and take charge of their own learning. As it says, the pace is decided by the student. The student has a lot of command over the resources that are available to him. There is flexibility of turning down the assignment and all. But a lot has to be done by the teacher in terms of making the student self-driven and responsible and becoming accountable to taking charge of this pace. We've said that he can do it at his own pace. So, how does blended learning instill this disposition of self-advocacy? That is something which we can deliberate on. Yes, sir.
Thank you. So clearly, yes, we are talking about a learner-centric transition, and therefore the a greater sense of responsibility and accountability is expected from the student. But having said that, at least in the current scenario, students across India look to the teachers for valuable mentorship and advice. In a sense, they tend to take these advice more seriously from the teachers than their own educated parents, for example. It happens most often across. And therefore, teachers have a very important role to actually help them in identifying their potentials and raising to their potentials. And yes, so a blended classroom that way is something which a face-to-face interaction, an optimal mix is inevitable. So yes, thank you.
Yeah. Yes, thank you so much. And here I would just like to add that a curriculum which actually first builds the stage on helping students understand and instilling this concept of, taking ownership, accountability, and learning at their own pace also means a lot of responsibility on the students themselves. So yes, we need to work on those parameters. Only then we can have a very, very successful blended learning procedure being set in. And thank you, sir. Thank you very much. Moving on to Ms. Dia Beju, I would want to, discuss here that there are good teachers and then there are not so good teachers, which is often reflected uh, the classroom management, the student performances. So there we are very clear. The element of teacher intervention in a classroom is very important because the curriculum and the syllabus is same across. So when we are talking about digital ingredient as a blender, can it be a game changer? Because then there is no deviation and there is no human intervention here. So do you think this digital ingredient, which is in the form of a blender, can be a game changer when it comes to quality of learning? Because then, digital blender is then, it is same for it's application based. So here we would want to your inputs on how would you compare the two situations?
On one hand, yes, digital content quality is most important. So whatever we lack in, a teacher, where I said we can't get teachers who are good at every subject and specialize in each and everything. And here, getting the digital aspect and getting good quality videos and audios becomes really a game changer, because this is the way where you can bridge that gap. But nonetheless, there is nothing to replace, a face-to-face interaction and also a real life teacher. So there has to be some kind of, because one thing which is very important is that the child is able to understand whatever the child has seen on the digital platform. The child has been able to understand, and that's where the assessments come in. And that's where, as ma'am had talked about, we need to find out, we need to get the feedback from the children. And for that also, we need to train our teachers. So we need to kind of have a balance between very good quality content and teachers who can, bridge that gap where the child has been able to go through it, understand it, and the teacher has been able to make that part, the teaching learning process, very smooth by being able to intervene and see that whatever has been put across to the child has actually been able to imbibe it. Because as we know, there are all different kind of learners and different learning abilities of there are slow learners, there are learners who are audiovisual, there are learners who like to do, a hands-on learner. So what are those little aspects where just a digital content or a very good quality digital content will not suffice? There has to be a real life teacher who can bridge that gap, and both together will be, making the teaching learning process very effective. And that's exactly what I feel is my take on this.
Great, great. Thank you so much, Dia. And we completely agree that it has to be a blend. Wherever we see there is a lacking, or there is some areas where the teacher needs to be equipped, so the digital content has to be very powerful. Now, one last question, which I would ask all of you, starting from Dr. Shankar, then Kirti, and then to Dia. Artificial intelligence is something which is extensively applied across all industries and across everywhere. So first, Dr. Shankar, what do you think? Would the concept replace an educator, say about 10 or 15 years down the line? How well it would be applied? How much percentage of both could be? So could you give us a very rough analysis or your take on this?
Yes, very interesting question. Thank you for that. Yes, as we have been talking about it, we will have to embrace technology and technological evolutions as we go along. We are talking about Education 4.0 today, and very soon, probably less than 10-15 years, we'll be seeing Education 5.0 and stuff like that coming. And there's no way that we as a country can be left back. We have a responsibility to provide the cutting edge education to our children. But having said that, I am personally of the view that the role of teachers, the face-to-face interaction cannot be done away with. There will be an increasing contribution of the digital mode of learning. And going forward, we have to provide a very personalized learning ambience for each student, as rightly highlighted by Ms. Dia and Kirti. Each student is unique in their own sense, and we have to provide that kind of comfort and the learning tools for them. And we are already hearing about several AI-based tools which can provide the personalized learning, understand the moods, understand the needs, maybe play music in between the favorite song of the students so that they don't get too depressed. They get back after 5 minutes, and and then understand they are not understood some concept just by the gesture, and then play an animation to explain that particular concept or show the three-dimensional working of a cell, for example. So all this is possible. These are all very interesting things left to our imagination, and who knows, all this will very soon become reality. Education is definitely going to be more fun with a lot of artificial intelligence coming in, and going forward, we are going to see a lot of virtual realities and augmented realities as well. And as I told, in less than 10-15 years, it's going to be more brain-machine interface people are talking about. The student has to just think about it, and the machine already answers for him. So it's going to be a lot of fascinating things happening there. But the role of teachers can never be discounted with, and we are all always here. We have a huge responsibility ahead of us. And I would say the responsibility will be even more as we grow towards a more technologically advanced nation, to ensure that this high-end technology is infused into the right minds. Otherwise, it could be more dangerous than doing it.
Yes, absolutely. Very well said, sir. Very well. And I'm very tempted to, Kirti, ask you a situation. Maybe 15 years down the line, artificial intelligence is all over in education. There is a problem of bullyism in the class. how would you envisage this with your technically, technology, that how would things like bullyism, motivation, or, these things being catered to by an artificial intelligence mechanism, and what will be the role then of an educator, maybe 15 years down the line? Yeah.
Okay, thank you for such a futuristic question, I must say. I totally resonate with Shankar, and I certainly believe that the role of a teacher, teacher cannot be replaced by a machine interventions. AI definitely is giving its way in adaptive learning processes. So where the students can be as per, the differentiated instructions and more personalized instructions will take over. And definitely when after receiving the instructions from the teacher, if the child is actually processing through adaptive learning kind of a setup, he will be able to understand and produce the best result in terms of achievement of a learning outcome. As you said, the process of bullying and motivation, definitely machine can only motivate as machines can do. Like we can perceive these days Alexa and all those virtual assistants. So they are definitely like a play kind of toys where we are asking them questions and they are replying to based on the analysis. But then machine will always be machine and human touch will always be human touch. So I don't see that there is going to be any kind of a disconnect in terms of a human and student, human interaction that is going to certainly exist no matter how much we advance in artificial intelligence. Thank you so much.
Great, very well said, Kirti, very well. Last but not least, yes, Dia, what is your take on the role of artificial intelligence? How do you visualize your school probably 15 years down the line? And what help would you get through artificial intelligence in administration? Very quickly.
Firstly, I think we sitting here maybe a year back or precisely 1.5 years back would never think we'll have online teaching for almost a year. And we did it. We could never imagine there would be a pandemic like this. We did hear about it. So for me, AI taking over is very futuristic, but very interesting, and I'm very intrigued by it. But I still like to think of our Gurukul system and how we've had the mentor-disciple relationship, where a guru has been, always the most important part in our, our history, in our education. And I feel human is the only, like the guru. So no matter how advanced an AI might come in, I think for that, social, emotional, connect, it is very important to still have a guru. And a guru is someone who you cannot, take away from you. And I think no matter how much technology might advance, we should definitely go back to our roots and never, forget our guru. And yes, I would definitely look forward to this because it is, making our students future ready. But always we must remember that we have to maintain a balance, because where it is AI cannot have that, very emotional part. The AI doesn't have a heart. And that's something where it is, all of value-based education, where we are making, sensitizing our students. I hope, the AI is able to, go to that extent and be able to do those things. But on the other hand, it can have a more devastating role. So we have to, see it's a very delicate balance, and we need to always understand that nothing can definitely replace a human connect. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Dia. I'm sure what you said, we all will be, we look forward to AI being beautifully and seamlessly being integrated into a system, and AI will never be able to. I completely resonate each and everyone's thoughts that they'll never be able to replace
and I
the
think
human.
you said it,
aspect.
administration. I think the other part was in the administration. Definitely, I think we would all be, as heads, as teachers, we would all be very happy to have someone, guiding us. We always need that. But
Yeah,
again, to actually be there and hands-on and understand, and every situation is different. So I think, again, we will definitely need a very hands-on person there. And AI, yes, should be an add-on thing where it would be helpful, but I don't think it can take away a human from there.
Great. Thank you so much. Our last segment is the Q&A by our audience. Meenu ma'am, can we just have some questions if we have?
I'm afraid there are no questions as far as the audience is concerned. I think everyone aligns well with the discussion that the panelists have engaged with you there, and important takeaways have already been discussed. There aren't any questions from this end.
All right, thank you so much. So when we come to an end, and I feel the role of an educator in the 21st century is then to guide students in dealing with massive amounts of content, the information, to develop skills and understanding necessary to use technology as an effective tool in a very, very responsible manner, and to assist students with developing their personal learning styles. That is where the accountability and self-advocacy is. It allows teachers to, the blended learning concept allows teachers to reach students in a way which never before was possible. However, for it to work, educators must not consider blended learning or technology solely for the sake of it as a tool. They must take care in designing process and choose content that best corresponds with students' needs and their teaching style. So as I always say, one size doesn't fit all. You have to develop your own styles of teaching, taking the time to discover content that seamlessly merges with classroom routines will mitigate risk and will help avoid costly mistakes, both in student time and precious school budgets. We now come to an end to this very, very insightful session on decoding national education policy, per se, blended learning and digitized classroom. From the bottom of my heart, I thank all our esteemed panelists for sparing their time and joining us. Thank you so much. Thank you. Over to you, Meenu ma'am.
Thank you, Dr. Shankar, Ms. Baijal, and Ms. Kirti Tripathi. There have been important takeaways for all of us from this session. And on behalf of EduDevs, the School of Inspired Teaching and Learning, and Amrita Vishwa Vidyapeetham, I extend a heartfelt thanks to all of you. Thank you, Mrs. Devyani Kapoor, for being our constant support.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you.